Exactly. It might just be a piece of a pie now, but the pie is small. So everybody, there's not that many ads filming, and the ones that do, you're competing with a few producers or a good handful of producers locally.
Yeah.
Whereas in the States, you're competing with more people, but there are more jobs out there. So if you don't get one, the time between applying for the next job is so short that you forget about you didn't get the last one, because there's always something to go after.
Yeah.
Whereas in Trinidad, you go after a commercial, you pitch for it, you may not get it. You probably have to wait another 6 months before an opportunity like that to pitch comes up again.
Yeah.
So I think that's where some people kind of maybe locally, whether it's exclusive to Trinidad or small markets like the Caribbean, the isolated Caribbean states, I think it's just kind of, there's just less going on. And so it creates a competition that's, some people may, not necessarily, they get a little bit more personal with it, as you said.
I think what you also can't help but happen, it's a very small industry, right? Meaning that, like when there's a failure on your part, you try to get a job, it didn't work out, someone else got it, whatever it is. Like, it's all very much in your face, immediate. It's there. Like, you go to a bar to have a drink. That person who beat you out is right there. Like, all these things happen in very small circles. And because we're already cliquish in nature, right? Like, like this DP, without me naming a DP, but this DP may have his circle, and this director has his circle, and everyone has the kind of circles that they become comfortable with. So now it's like, if I say I want to work with this person, they're always curious as to, well, who's the rest of the crew, because they're comfortable within their space and don't necessarily want to work with this person. It's a little bit difficult, whereas in the States you don't have a choice. It's like, this is the crew, right? Like, okay, well,
I think because we're so small, I mean, if you think about it, it's not just with film, it's pretty much all these sectors. I mean, I think back to my teenage days. It was a lot of cliques and groups that wanted to hang out with each other. And the way that I always looked at that was, it was kind of like a survival thing,
right,
or protection thing. If you have a small group of trusted people around you, less likely you'll get attacked. I mean, I'm just using attacked loosely, but
fair point.
So it's like in film, I think, as it relates to film or music, I think that people they feel, they have the producers or the directors or the DPs or whoever that they work with, right down to the makeup artists, and that they work with. And there's a level of trust there that's like, okay, cool, I could include them in something because they might include me in something. And so it becomes kind of a group by, necessary for survival sort of thing. Because of how small our market is.
Yeah. No, but that's fair point.
I mean, so we could, I want to, I guess start off the questions with, I know you from the management side, music management side, or talent management side.
Yeah.
But now you've gotten into kind of the filmmaking, but I mean, I kind of know a little bit of your story, but you want to just kind of tell me how you went from music, or how you got into music briefly, and then how you made that transition into film.
It's funny because when you're much younger and you have to make those life or career decisions, everyone, parents, your family around you, everyone's kind of like, you gotta make a choice, and my choice was film. Like that's always what I want to get into. I remember my dad coming home and saying, you had to pick something that you enjoy, that you love, and all I ever loved doing was putting in those movies, right, into the machine and checking out, what was next. So, film was what I studied. Went University of Miami, studied that, but in the end, I gravitated towards music, not because I made that conscious decision. It was a survival choice. I needed to have a job to justify my work permit. And I was doing a lot of PA stuff, working on commercials and feature films, etc. So that's basically what happened. I took a job at a music management firm, and that was when I got sort of drawn into that world. So when I left the States, came back to Trinidad, so to speak, the film was still very much in its infancy stages in regards to technology, right? Like what we have today, wasn't available, let's say 20 years ago, right? So naturally, following up on what I had learned from talent management, I worked with a lot of artists and developed a lot of artists along the line of ones that you know today, be it let's say Tessa and Chin, Maximus, Dan, now MX Prime, of course, worked with Nadia Batson, Kerwin Dubois, Kesteban, which everyone knows us for. So these were all acts that we worked with over the years, but eventually coming out of the pandemic, we didn't have any acts other than a few that we were like working with and still work with to this day. But I think the pandemic really helped me pivot completely to this love of filmmaking and saying, hey, I'm going to ground my remaining years in looking at what production is and production work.
What was it like, I guess? You always hear struggles of Caribbean talent, whether it's music or film or whatnot. I mean, being from the management side where your role is to build the career of a lot of these musical artists, let's say from the beginning, from the early on side of your career. I mean, what is it like navigating, I guess, the American music market, the European music market, coming from the Caribbean? Is it as many obstacles as there is in film? Is music a little bit easier because of the Rihannas and the Nicki Minaj's and stuff like that? I mean, they weren't around when you started, but...
Well, I think first of all, it's a very humbling experience, right? Whether you're working in music or film, because what you have to deal with is understanding that you are, no matter how successful you are as a person from the islands, right, from the Caribbean, the people in Hollywood, let's say, or in other major markets, New York, Atlanta, Miami, to give a few, they don't necessarily see you on the same level, right? I'm not saying all of them, but I do think that there's a majority out there, based on the fact that we're not doing the kind of numbers, perhaps, or we're not having the success of, let's say, pop artists, and I'm even going back 20 years ago, it was a lot worse, right? Because we, reggaeton and Afrobeats and those things weren't really part of the equation back then. So it is very, very difficult, I think, breaking in and getting noticed, and there are a lot of shut doors, so you deal with rejection very often. I think the other difficult part of it all, working within the management structure, but the talent that you work with, sometimes you are dealing with egos that could be very fragile, right? You have to be careful what you say. And then you double that with the fact that I think, generally speaking, we can be thankless, right? Like, a win happens for someone, but, when the wins start piling up, they kind of forget perhaps that, hey, maybe this person had a hand in that, contributed to that, right? So on either side, it's difficult. I think it's easier with music, because music always allowed someone the chance to get in front of a mic, let's say, put down a track, put it out there, and the odds are you're probably going to get a hit with a track, assuming that you're good or great,
right,
versus a short film or feature that you make. That, I mean, I think the odds of either one are definitely lean more towards the favor of music.
Right, yeah.
Because film now, you have to blend, it's not just getting the visual and the audio right. You need to have a great story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So...
and then a handful of people at minimum.
Yeah.
To pull together a film.
Yeah. Whereas with song, you could literally have a catchy hook. You know what I mean?
Producer could send you a track, you could sing on it, a demo.
Yeah, and mind you, there's a lot of failure there too.
Yeah.
But again, I think the odds are very much in someone's favor when you're speaking to the probability of success, So, and financing, I mean, you may have to spend some money to cut a track.
Yeah.
That's always going to happen. But when you look at it, if you're spending, let's say, 2,000 US, right, versus having to make a short film that's going to cost you 20,000 US, it is way different in terms of what that investment is. So,
And I feel like the music can go a little bit further than, say, a short film.
yeah.
If it was a feature film, a little different, but
Yeah, definitely.
there's a little,
Yeah,
a little critter. Very irritating, these things.
Yeah. Come on, get out of there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that you have to consider, the financial aspects of it all, and then recognizing that there's a lot more, there are many more moving parts in a film versus that for music, right? Even in the business of getting it out there and, seeing success, I think.
Yeah. And in terms of like wins in the music, what would you say is probably one of your favorite wins from your music management side of things? Was it a big meeting? Was it meeting particular big artists that are, established worldwide? Well, can you share anything there?
Yeah, no, I mean, that it's funny because I've had to think about that often because the losses are so fierce, right? So you always try to think of like, where were the wins, But there were a number of things that stand out that I felt really good or great about in our
Proud
career.
of.
Yeah. I mean, we were able to get several placements for music that our artists that we managed throughout the course of that 20 plus year career on various things, be it different television shows, feature movies, games, things like that. And there are those that do stand out. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that was cool when that happened. And it's always the first time. So the first time, for example, was Maximus Dan.
I was just gonna ask you.
Who got the song. We got the song Fighter. Well, it's called Fighter, but everyone knows it as Soca Warrior, right? We got that on an EA.
I used to play that as a kid. I remember that very, very well.
Yeah, so that there were things like that happened for us that you feel really good about. Locally, helping Kerwin Dubois place first for Soca Monarch. I mean, Soca Monarch, of course, is everyone's gonna have their positive or mainly negative views apparently, but the thrill of winning something and knowing that you put a lot of hard work into it and that it paid off, there are things like that. We got a record deal with an independent label, for one of the acts. We didn't manage Tessa at the time, but when she won The Voice, we still felt very much
very cool.
Part of what that was. So I mean, as you kind of look at the years that pass by, you do hold on to certain things and you hope that you can learn from it, build on it, and help someone else achieve their dreams, right? So that's kind of where it's at, I think.
Was the EA deal?
Yeah.
As as a young kid playing the game and hearing the song come on, you think, I mean, this is the height of Maximus Dan career or MX Prime. I mean, is it a lucrative thing? Is it at the time? Was it this is going to be insane amount of exposure, so let's kind of go that route? And I don't know how much those things pay. I'm not in music at all.
No, I mean it varies. So something like back then, because I haven't done a deal recently with let's say with any gaming, right, company, franchise or whatever, but placements like that could earn you anywhere between 10, 20, 30,000 US, right? So, but the great thing about Prime, throughout his entire career, he's one of the most humble guys that I've ever worked with. Like, it was never those things about. I mean, we did some great contracts, million and multi-million-dollar deals and things like that. And he always was very much about, let's just move on to the next thing. We celebrated this for a day. let's talk about what's next. And he was never fancy or frivolous when it came to how he spent his money. He was very, very grounded.
Yeah.
So people like that you work with really do rub off on you, right? Because then I started thinking, well, if this artist could be this way, then why, why should I be any other way? So you want to surround yourself with people who definitely inculcate, the best things about you as a person that you can then share with someone else.
Yeah.
That was a great moment, though.
I was proud.
Yeah.
Because it was a Trinidadian product on an international stage.
Yeah.
I think that we, as a people, as Trimegonians, we rally around. Unfortunately, we rally around a little bit more of success than getting behind somebody. But when we do get behind people, when we do rally behind that little glimpse of success, we push people forward. I mean, I remember Anya Yangchi from Project Runway.
Project Runway, that's right.
And I use this example all the time because I remember it was like the entire country was texting and hashtagging on Twitter and wherever else that the competition was taking place. It just kind of reminded me we can get behind one of our own. And so it was something that, I was pretty proud of that moment, listening every time the Soca Warrior song came on. I think there was a way to change the track on the game. And we used to change the track until it came on to Maximus Danwell, MX Prime's fighter, Soca Warrior.
That's great.
I guess now you going into film, it feels, well, to me as an outsider in music, even though I appreciate music, it feels like music, like film is music, but with way more moving parts. Mm-hmm. And it's just interesting that you're going to something that I would call a harder field to even create a product.
Right.
I mean, what is it like, I guess, now focusing? I know that you still have music clients and you still very much in the music world, but I know that you're pushing forward the filmmaking a lot.
Yeah.
How has it been in the filmmaking space? I know some of your films that you've produced with, I remember John Tesoro.
That's right.
I remember, what were some of the early ones?
Oh man, we have a ton of those actually.
Damagement. Did you ever produce anything for Damagement?
Yeah. What do you mean?
You produced an episode or a series of Damagement?
No, just like a short, like a proof of concept.
Nice.
So that was.
I remember when I read for that.
Yeah, that's right.
In your offices, I remember that. That seemed like a fun one to do. So I was always glad to hear that a pilot or some sort of proof of concept was filmed.
Yeah. So I mean, wow, we did a short with Shia LaBeouf, called "The Smallest River in Almirante."
Yes.
That won awards. I want to say it won at the LA Film Festival and at the Venice Film Festival.
Very cool.
So I know that I got a co-producer title on that, and Question Mark also got a production company title on that. So that was great. But yeah, I mean, I think the way people or what they don't know is for years we've been involved in film, right? So we've done everything from like music videos, of course, naturally, to broker deals for reality TV. We brought one of the biggest reality TV shows to the island for the first time ever. That was done through us, and that was an MTV show. We did Project Runway with Bravo. So I mean, we've done several of those. So I guess what it is that I was never really comfortable in the space of you need to boast about your accomplishments. Because I think that at times, if you know, right? Like I don't feel like I need to do those things. But recently, I've kind of started publishing things that we've done because we live in a very different time now where people need to know, be reminded, I guess, that you can do this, right? So it's much more of a boasting sort of scenario with IG and everything else that exists. I'm not really in favor of it, but I understand why it's necessary because you don't get hired if people feel like you're not doing squat.
Yeah.
So
it's always something I struggled with was the self-promotion part of it.
Yeah. And I feel that. I mean, but you know, kind of going back a little bit on in terms of using this to talk about film and success, Michael Cherry, you know, getting him on Shirley during a time. I think why that stands out to me the most, perhaps, is the pandemic shut down the creative industry, right here. Like there was nothing going on, right? So
Productions were cancelled.
yeah, productions were canceled.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was literally the most difficult time for any person working in that space. So for us to accomplish, right, getting an actor, right, from our shows, you know, sign on to a movie that of course is a huge deal in terms of the people behind it, John Ridley, you know, Regina King, and working locally, you know, we worked with Marcus Lefouk, you know, to help us with getting things off the ground. Actors came together to help Michael prep for that role. Like it was one of the few times like I felt like we loved each other, like in that sense, like let's
The
do
camaraderie
this.
was felt.
Oh yeah. It was very, very real. So anyway, I say all that to say that, you know, it's funny, I should have mentioned that at the beginning, but one of our biggest successes was, of course, Michael's accomplishment of being cast in that role, because we had nothing, like there was nothing going on. We had no real friends in that particular world, right, of Netflix, etc. So to make that happen, I think that kind of trumps anything, you know, because that's really one of those success stories of you got nothing but you won.
Yeah.
Right.
He was on a few episodes ago, Michael,
Right.
maybe about a month and a half ago, and he had shared the story of from you calling him to say, "What are you doing this weekend?" He's like, "It's my birthday." He says, "Okay, well, you'll celebrate your birthday next year. You need to learn these lines."
Yeah.
To him getting the call and that he had booked it.
Yeah.
And he had shared it. I guess that's another one of those moments where, you know, I felt very proud,
Yeah.
you know, and to be
I
to be a
shared many more
Trimigonian.
expletives with him than just that.
Yeah, he had mentioned a couple of them, but I mean that was massive. I remember the news, and my jaw was on the ground, not because I doubted it, just because coming out of the pandemic, things were really kind of up in the air for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then you hear Michael Cherry booked, not just a Netflix movie, but opposite Regina King, you know, playing her husband in the film.
A fantastic cast too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Lance Riddick and, you know, rest in peace.
Yeah.
And Terrence Howard. And he had shared a lot of that, which, I mean, it's amazing. As an actor myself, I can feel what he felt, almost what he felt, you know, and what it would be like to kind of be on a set like that, because I've been on a couple of sets with some people like that. So it was awesome to see.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think to myself, it's like, why are we surprised that we could stand up we could stand up in the same room with Hollywood? Why are we surprised? Because I think that there's a lot of people who can do that, who have those capabilities, who can act in lots of different things. And yeah, it's nice to see.
Well, I think the thing that I wouldn't say that we've forgotten, but everyone always cites natural resources, you know, oil, gas is what Trinidad and Tobago has as, you know, our greatest earning resource. But I think that our greatest earning resource and potential really lies in our people. Like I, you know, strongly believe that the level of talent that we have in all fields, music, film, fashion, dance, the arts, theater, you know, and even the advanced side of it, what I'm learning now through our community, right, of Odos, is that there's also people in AI, you know, and just other tech fields that are just absolutely like just beyond extraordinary. So, and this is from an island of what, 1.4, 1.5 mil, right? I mean, we have that capacity, but the problem lies in the way that is translated to the people, like the public, and to government, or I should say public sector and private sector, because we still treat our creative community in a lot of cases like outcast, right? And the idea that, you know, okay, so this person's a plumber, let's say, or whatever, they have a great profession, and, you know, banker, etc., but they're going to get a loan. But then when we walk in and say, hey, I'm an actor or I'm a musician or whatever it is, it's like, okay, but is that a real profession? The way that we treat it is because the narrative, unfortunately, hasn't been set right for us. And yet we can easily contribute tens, hundreds of millions, you know, or more. I don't want to dare say billion, but Carnival itself is proof that, you know, that $1 billion figure could be reached. So I think we're so capable of that, but we so look down as a society on these, you know, amazing pools of talent in all these different fields. That has to change.
Well, I think now might be a good time to talk about a recent success in the film space for y'all, with the documentary, The Tall Boy.
Uh-huh.
And I guess publicly, congratulations on the, even though I said it, I had posted it a bunch of times online, but congrats on winning Best Documentary at Diversity in Cannes, at the Cannes Film Festival this year. We were there, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What was it, I guess, which I don't think I specifically ever asked you this question, even in private conversation. What made you choose, besides the obvious, of an icon in the carnival space? What made you choose, or what was the catalyst that pointed you in the direction of doing a documentary on Peter Minshall and his product? You may have spoken about it, but I figured I'd ask you again.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's kind of funny because it all started during the pandemic again. There were a group of us that were labeled the Carnival Avengers, right? Myself, Dean Atkin, Jules Sobian, Dwayne Norberger. I'm just trying to think of all the people who were involved in it, you know. And essentially, Private Ryan was also part of it, Hoppy. Just to give you an idea of the crew that was there. Daniel, I forget Daniel's last name, forgive me, Daniel. But yeah, so we had this great group of people coming together with ideas, and we were talking about what could we do. And at the time, I was approached by a production company, and based in Hollywood, they were interested in doing something on Carnival, and sort of for Netflix, they're a first look company, right? So they had this deal with Netflix, and they wanted to do something with Carnival and tying Carnival in Trinidad to Brazil and to New Orleans. And so we had to come up with a concept that sort of, you know, looked at how, you know, those sort of connective tissue, you know, might have been part of the very fabric of what we built. And in the issues that we broke down something with Peter Minshall as a contributor, you know, in terms of the art craft and what makes it the greatest show in the world. But specifically talking about that time period, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? And so when the Carnival Avengers thing kind of collapsed on itself, that's a whole story there, and it's, you know, in terms of how we operate, unfortunately.
Was it a promotional group?
No, I think it was a sincere and genuine attempt by those who were involved in being able to move the needle as to what we could do during the time of the pandemic that still made Carnival a recognized sort of resource, right? And so there was a lot of positivity behind it, but I think you have so many, you know, mega stars in that room that a lot of what was happening, I think, was just a lot of shifting of back and forth of like, hey, maybe we should do this or maybe we should do that, and I went on for a little while. So I mean, you know, unfortunately, it didn't work out. It's not really there's no finger pointing or whatever. But out of it, I still had this thing, so that when everyone was going, you know, we started going back in our own directions, right? So the pandemic was bringing us together, strangely enough. But when we were coming out of the pandemic, everyone was sort of like more hyper-focused on, oh, well, I'm going back to do this,
right?
All right? So coming out of that, I didn't have any major artist or anything like that. I just had this plan, and I said, hey, how about if I approach it and do it? So we went out and we met with some production companies, talked about the idea. We were offered some money to, basically they would buy the rights from us. We make the film, but then we would own less than 10%
Wow.
on it. And we're making a film about the fact that this, about Peter Minshall's inflatable dolls being stolen, and here we are now about a conducted deal where we don't have any control. It's taken from us, so it felt weird. So in the end, we just said, look, let's just try to do this on our own. Raise capital where we can, use credit cards where we have to. And fortunately, Life Garland, director, and Todd Gulick and many others who were part of the production were willing to just say, look, let's just do this. Don't let anything stop us from doing it. And there were many times, man, I had to tell you that you hit that brick wall and you're like, screw this, man. Why am I really going through this, this effort? And but then at some point you kind of just get over a hump, and you're like, all right, let's go back at it. And that's what we did. And we did that for 3 years. And when we cut the feature, we spoke to a gentleman by the name of Archie Gibbs, who is Mark Wahlberg's partner, business partner. And he said, I think the feature is great, but don't be afraid to cut us short. That's kind of like the suggestion came about, I believe. And then we were like, okay, this is actually a pretty good idea. Let's do that. And then we ended up cutting the short because we felt we could finish the short in time for submission, right, to Cannes and other places. And we missed a couple of deadlines in the feature, so we just like, look, let's just keep on working on the feature in the background. Let's just promote the short. Not thinking it would go anywhere. A lot of times, I think at the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, given a chance, this thing could do well. But the reality is you face so many hurdles in this life that you start believing the negative, right? Like, all right, just pay the money, enter into this, showcase, festival, event, whatever it is, and whatever happens. And it so worked out that it happened. And we won Best Documentary at that event as supported by Viola Davis's company, Juvie Productions. And
Diversity in Cannes.
Yeah. So that was great. But it's just the beginning. Right now we're concentrating on finishing the feature, which means syncing up all the rights that we have to, and still working on the short by putting it into an Oscar-eligible festival in September.
Excellent.
Right? And then hopefully convincing Academy members to vote for the film. And if that happens, then who knows, maybe, that night, March 15th next year, on a wing and a prayer, right? You get to see some of us at the event.
Yeah.
I'm going to go as far as saying, okay, and we win and we're up on the stage. But that'd be great too.
I remember being at the screening, at the Diversity in Cannes screening of the Tall Boy. And I remember becoming emotional watching it, because it was twofold for me. Being a proud Trinbagonian and kind of really getting a glimpse of what was taken from Peter Minshall and how it was taken.
Right.
It's a story that I think that everybody should really hear about.
Yeah.
But for those two reasons, I got a little emotional, and I remember I kind of turned around because we were screening it in the room with, I don't know, 100 and something people. And I remember turning around and everybody was patting their eyes and kind of wiping their eyes. And it struck a chord with, I think, a lot of people. And even the trailer, watching the trailer, you can see that it carries a lot of emotion with it.
Right.
And the emotion itself tells a story other than the actual story that's being told literally on screen. But the emotion itself carries a different story to complement the whole thing. But I was really happy to see the doc. I was really happy to see what you all did, because it was a story, as I said, that needed to be told. and it was really well done, really well done. And I want to see the feature. I'm excited to see the feature once it's all the rights have passed. I know getting all the clearances.
That in itself is troubling when you start finding out what the pricing for clearances can be. It's very hard pill to swallow financially.
You start asking questions like, do we need to use this song? Do we need to use this video clip?
Everything. I mean, Olympics footage is an example so that people know. If you're using, well, you have no choice, whether it's 1 second or 60 seconds of Olympics footage.
So 1 minute or any part thereof.
Yeah, correct. Can cost you 40,000 US. You know, so when you look at the next time you look at a Netflix documentary, and you see the amount of footage they use from archival sources, just start calculating in your head, you know, what that may mean. And sometimes the archival footage costs more than the production of the film, you know.
Because you kind of need that to tell the full picture of the story.
Yeah. And documentaries have changed. Like documentary telling has really become much more feature film like, you know, you need a drama. Right, you need the plot points.
You need a hook.
Yeah, you need the hook, right?
Yeah.
The inciting incident. It all feels very familiar in terms of when you go and see an action movie in theaters, and then you look at a documentary. They're almost, you know, following that sort of formula, right?
Yeah, they build up the story, and then they knock you down, and then they pick you back up,
and the plot twist, and you know. So I think for us anyway, that, you know, even with a short, you still try to develop those moments, right? And I mean, Peter Minshall, man, just, you know, because you find that this society is one where there's always sort of like a love-hate relationship with people, right? But you can't help but have so much love for this guy who really transformed Carnival into a space in which you wanted to go and see it. You wanted to understand, you know, what story he was telling and what the symbolic meaning behind those things. And he wasn't the only one. I mean, Wayne Barkley, there are many others who did great things, but I'm just saying that this story, you know, revolves around Peter, of course, because of dancing inflatable dolls that are seen all over the world, and really just is a testament to the kind of genius he is. Because I sometimes think that if he ever made a decision, you know, back in those days, and he said, you know, forget Trinidad, I'm going to do this elsewhere, he would have been one of those giants. You know, like not that he isn't here for us. I just mean globally, like a V.S. Naipaul, you know, type, where it's like everybody, that's who he would have been. But he chose to stick with us. And that's why I think it's so much more important for us to understand that this person gave up what could have been like a path to some different level of greatness, right? You know, and he chose this one, which is standing by us, right? To make us better, to push us, to drive us, to show what we can do, right? As a people. And that's why I think this man deserves that kind of love and respect, you know?
Yeah, I think that there's a handful of people, just me personally, that I think about, that I have no choice but to say this person gave themselves fully to Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
And there's as I said, a handful of people. Most people seem to be in the arts, but for me at least. But he's definitely one of them. I mean, he, especially when you watch your documentary, you learn a lot about him and his life and what he dealt with and what he's dealing with now.
Yeah. And
you really have no choice but to say this man gave himself to Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah. To the development, as you said, the development of Carnival and his art and what he gave to the world through us, if you will, you know, taking our culture and putting it quite literally on the world stages.
Yeah. And he did that in so many cases, whether it was Barcelona, whether it was Atlanta, you know, just all over the world, that, you know, wherever he went, he took us, you know, with him.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I never really asked for anything.
Well,
you get that sense in the documentary.
Yeah, I mean,
that he put himself quite literally the bottom of the list.
Yeah, it's a, you know, the thing about it is this, right? No doubt he put his craft first, right? And he may also say things like, you know, it's not about this and it's not about that. But I think deep down inside, just from knowing talent, you know, it's to the point where I feel like if sometimes you can't wait for someone to ask for something, right? Like, if it is you've recognized that this person has done this sort of service, then we should automatically be the type of people who be like, let's figure out how to make it happen for this person. Let's not wait for them to ask. Let's not wait till they're dead.
Yeah.
Right? Let's start finding ways of creating the conversations that drive ways to help them, because they can't just walk into a place and say I'm so and so and get food or pay a bill or whatever it is, right? And I think that's the problem with us as talent, our old age, unfortunately, right? As meaning we get older, there need to be things that are implemented that ensure that these greats, be it in sport, fashion, music, dance, whatever it is, that they get a chance to at least whenever their lives end, that it ends happily, knowing that there was the support for them. Because that's just like a parent, you don't just let your parent, hey, good luck as you get older, right? You still become a parent for your parents, right?
Yeah.
Right, like you start helping them out, making sure they're all right. And I think that's what we need to do as an industry. We need to start looking out for these people who do so. You can pay, Trinidad and Tobago can't pay our creative sector for the kind of job it does on tourism. Every time you make a movie or a short, every time someone goes out and makes a song, right, and it does well, or goes and performs the track, like that level of promoting our island, you can't pay them for that, and so that's what I mean. Like we need to start thinking differently.
Yeah.
So
What? Well, I guess we'll move on, since you kind of ended that point on a thinking differently. Yeah. How do we, I'm going to start differently. I have always been a fan of a type of filmmaking, industry-wise,
right,
especially like for us, an isolated place like Trinidad and the Caribbean, and disjointed like the Caribbean,
right,
is we need to create stars.
yeah,
And if stars is too much of a word for people, we need to create recognizable faces, put them in vehicles, in films, and then as a way to sell the film,
right,
to a regional or local or regional audience. And that's something that I've always kind of been an advocate of, even to the various local film festivals, and telling some of the organizers of the film festivals, look, we need to create movie stars. Right. That's how I think that we can now then sell local films better. Nobody goes to see a movie to go and see the story. They go and see Will Smith in the movie, Brad Pitt in the movie, Meryl Streep, Regina King, Viola Davis, whoever it is. We go to see those people. The Rock, Jason Statham, I can literally go on. Jim Carrey. We go to see those faces in movies. We don't go to just see a random movie. Every so often, of course, or some independent film, or that has relatively unknown actors, like Honora, will come and kind of break a bunch of molds. Slumdog Millionaire. Where faces aren't the driver, whereas the subject matter is the driver. But most of Hollywood, the faces are the drivers. And so whereas I think that we can do both in Trinidad, because I think that we do have a wealth of stories and very rich stories to tell that could hopefully bring people into the theaters, I do think that there is an easier route to get people into the theaters to consume local theater, local movies, and local content by creating recognizable faces, then putting those faces in the vehicles, and then people have a little bit more of a connection to the product, whereas they know somebody in it. When I say they recognize the face that's in it.
Right. Well,
What do you think about that? That's something
Yeah.
that I've always kind of spoken about.
But let me agree and disagree at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that model that you speak of, certainly, without a doubt, was how the system used to work. I think it's changing, right? And I say that because Netflix, streaming networks, again, like Amazon Prime, etc., has created a space now where there's such an influx, right, of these films that people are getting a little bit more interested in story,
Yeah.
right? So that, when you look at series like Money Heist or Squid Game and where they're coming from, they're things that are grabbing your attention.
Black Mirror.
Right? Black Mirror, right? So I feel like if that is changing, and social media has a lot to do with that. So there, as recent as 10 years ago, we would have done a festival called Decibel as an example, where we would bring in celebrity figures from television, film, etc., right? That couldn't work today. What I mean by that is you have to find influencers and content creators, right, to appeal to the demographic that we look at, because now the stars are no longer movie stars. They're these guys like Anwar. I don't know if I pronounced his name correctly. So I apologize for that. But, these guys who do these little
The comedy
30-second, and these are new stars of today.
Like your boy,
Right.
Riddell.
Like Riddell Ortiz. Oh, that's
Let me tell
definitely
you,
my brother.
he
Yeah.
makes me laugh I don't follow a lot of these comedy guys. The local ones I do, like
Right.
Kyle Boss and Junior Lee and
Certified Samson.
Samson, of course,
yeah.
and Jordan with an X.
Yeah.
He's a young kid with a afro, hilarious.
Yeah,
I mean, these
yeah.
guys are putting in the work,
Yeah.
we'll say. But in terms of the foreigners, I mean, Riddell, and
Yeah.
it was so nice to meet him in France. But his stuff is hilarious.
Well, I think so. What's happening now is that people are becoming more in tune with story, right? Like it's and so I think that part of your point is spot on. Like, we need to develop stars, right? Sometimes you don't need to develop them; they might be right there, like the names that we mentioned. What is important now is the vehicle,
Yeah.
and how that, and what we do to drive, that internationally. And so the way, the platforms that exist, if we develop a new platform, those are the things that are going to matter in order for us to get people to buy in. And I think the technology is there. It's certainly improved. So it's possible. But now we have to come together and unite more than ever. And I think that is sadly our Achilles heel, right? Like, we are the very basis of crabs in a barrel, right? And what that represents exists very much in Trinidad and to an extent throughout the Caribbean. And until we start learning how to help each other versus pull down each other, it's going to be a tough proposition, to say, hey, let's do this. Because there's a lot of hate out there, and a lot of, it's very toxic environment, and I think that we had to figure out how to dismantle that. And I don't know if I know how.
Well, perfect segue into, I guess, something that we could talk about now, where bringing people together, because maybe we could kind of just touch on it's kind of like an underlying venture that's
Right.
kind of like permeates music and film and all the different things you're doing,
Right.
which is Odos,
Yeah.
1 Degree of Separation, getodos.com. I am a member, proud member. Was that disjointedness, was that kind of the need for people to come together, is that kind of where, because I know that Odos is kind of an evolution of what you're doing before with like Talent Factory and some of the other stuff you were doing, and kind of Odos has now taken over where it's more global. It's more of a resource networking thing rather than say like a Talent Factory agency. But what is that your answer? Is get Odos? Is that your answer to kind of the disjointedness that you're kind of feeling?
So the idea behind Odos as a platform very much speaks to what you're saying, right? The fact is that whatever it is that we're doing locally, we have brothers and sisters in neighboring islands, right? And sometimes these family members travel all over the world and they get jobs and they become, very powerful within those realms.
Connected.
Yeah. So I think the going out there and participating in these festivals, etc., I started recognizing that everyone had something. Certainly within Africa and Nigeria and places, they're developing their communities, and of course, it's always existed in Hollywood, right? So I felt like, well, what do we have? And so I stopped seeing it as just Trinidad and Tobago. I started seeing it more as this global force where we were all kind of lending a hand to one another. And so Odos, as you rightfully said, is that. There are on WhatsApp, I think when you look at both groups, there might be just over 500 people. But in terms of registered members online, I think it's closer to 1,000. And the idea is, maybe by us being in the same community, understanding that, hey, I'm trying to finish this film, but I need it color corrected. Who could I turn to? I have an idea for a song as an artist, but I need to work with a mentor who is a writer or producer. Like that's pretty much, these are the kind of things that Odos facilitates us to help us get better or to improve. Each one help one has always been the motto.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe that is one answer. It's not the answer. And we hope, as we continue to build it and get people aware of it, we could get the financing that helps us to do a lot more, provide grants, aid, help people in need, do workshops, create incubators and accelerators. Like we now have to start figuring out what are the things that are going to make us, phenomenal in terms of what we're doing.
Stand out, successful.
Yeah.
Because I think that's we need those organizations, and also organizations like the Ministry of Trade and Film TT and the stuff that they're doing to try and kind of encourage a shift in thinking, because there's a lot of talk about orange economy and of course we all fall in that orange economy side of things, but it feels like the conversation about the sector has been probably the loudest that it's been since I've been back, since 2010, thereabouts. For the last 15 years, it feels, because it feels like it comes in waves as well, where there's a lot of attention on the industry, whether it's a product or a person or whatever the case is. But in terms of an entire orange economy sector, which includes fashion and music and a lot of the other, and the arts and stuff, it feels like that conversation's a lot louder now, that people are, whether for marketing or because they actually care, right, or for optics, people are paying attention to that orange economy conversation.
Yeah.
And I hope that turns into opportunities, whatever that may look like, whether it's funding, whether it's support and supplementary things that like seminars and webinars for producers, for Odos did a masterclass, a cinematography masterclass
right,
some months ago. Maybe 6 months ago, or last year, I can't remember right now. Was it last year? November.
Yeah.
And I think that just having those types of things creates products that then people can see, and just people seeing things over and over and over being produced locally, whether it's a scene or a full feature film or a TV show. It expands people's thinking that okay, this may be a viable industry in terms of financial success. Because at the end of the day, that's how everything is unfortunately categorized. Is it a success financially or not?
Yeah.
And people make very big decisions based off of, obviously the money that something may bring in.
Well, there's no one answer, right? To this situation we're in, and how to make things better. I think we all know the answers, but it's the ability for us to come together and just let go, right? We're so good at holding grudges. Like I don't think there are very few communities I've dealt with around the world where like people are just so mad, right? Or this didn't go the way that I wanted it. You didn't pay me this, or you don't recognize my worth, or I mean, and so we kind of hold these things against one another, and we don't let go of it.
That's why contracts are so important.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Number
yeah,
one.
yeah. But I think more so, there is a point where you just have to be like, that was in the past.
Right.
How do we make it better for the future, right? These are things that happened that were pretty, crappy. All right, well, let's get over that, right? By setting these rules from the get-go, from the jump, right? So that we understand it. So there's a lot we have to really go through this wusa moment, and just be like, all right, well, fine, let's move on. And so I think once that can happen, and those conversations can happen, because I believe we're beautiful people inside and out, and then that is where things can change. I think a lot has to change with government too. Every time I meet with someone in government, the conversation is always about carnival. It's like music, soca. We have so much more to offer than just that. We're not just relegated to these 2 days a year, right? Or the months that lead up to it. Like, there are things that we can do and contribute as a people that goes way beyond that, right? That it can be a thriving industry. So I think that the conversations need to be acknowledged, and the exchanges have to be different. So I don't know. We also have this tendency, because we touched on nepotism, I know earlier in the conversation where we were just talking, but we can't just, I think the thing with politics that has happened very often over years, this is not one particular political party, right? It's, we are almost saying it's okay to put someone in a position because they supported us, right, to get into power, right? Which is fine, right? But line up people in the right sectors too, right? That can benefit you. So you can't put someone who's really good with let's say, the tourist economy to handle security, right? Like you need to start understanding, like these squares go into these square holes, right? Like we need to start lining it up properly, and I think that a lot of it is based on ego, payback, not really thinking it through, or not really understanding, in the case of the creative, sector, like who's important to this, right? Like who understands what we're going through, what we're feeling, who's willing to leave their ego behind as well, who's not in it just for the money or the grace of it. Like that. There's so much to this thing, but it starts with acknowledging what it is and being accountable. Because that's the other problem I have in this industry too. Like, you do something wrong. If we're on a football field and I pass the ball to you and you don't get it, you would do, right? Like, hey, that's on me, right? My bad, right? We don't do that here. Right? When something goes wrong, it's like it's that person's fault. And we need to kind of stop that as well. So that's why I said it's not just one thing. There's several things we need to properly look at and figure out how we move forward.
So what's, I guess, a good closer would be, I guess, what's next in terms of whether it be Odos or yourself from a production standpoint, whether it's music or film, what's next? Like, what are you up to next?
Well, I think the thing that's first and foremost with me personally is concentrating on getting that Oscar nomination for this, this film that we really have put so much, love, passion, blood, sweat, tears into. I think that any moment that you can celebrate with 1 billion people that allows us to be highlighted, is a moment that I would kill for, so to speak, right? So getting Trinidad on the map in that way, I think would be great, because I think it'll also open doors for us, allow us now to start looking at other stories, and seeing that, hey, if this could do it, what else could we do? And we have, like you said, we have tons of stories, right?
Yeah.
So that for me right now is where my emphasis is on, and also building our Odos community globally, trying to get into a position of strength where we have some form of fund or SPV that allows us to start hiring, the professionals that can help us build out in a way that can be useful to us as either members or mentors, right? So I think that that's also a very important part of my next, the evolution of where we're going.
Any films coming up that you could share?
Well, right now we have one project that I'll mention, which is basically an anthology feature that brings together 7 of the top filmmakers out of the Caribbean. And that's something that I've been working on with my business partners like Scott Sardina, who is probably killing himself on his Will Smith tour right now because they're jumping from territory to territory, right? But we're finding a lot of support from places we didn't expect. We went with Aaron Kalu, another business partner of ours, to Dubai, and we had a chance to meet with some really fantastic people. I don't mean just because they're wealthy, right? And that doesn't make anyone fantastic, by the way. But it's the fact that they built their own success, and they want to invest in the success of others. That's what I mean by fantastic, right? It's not just keep my money and die with it, so to speak. So that I really appreciated. And I feel like if we can successfully fulfill the obligations we have to provide them with the paperwork and all those necessary things, we're going to move mountains.
Awesome.
And so that's the next big project and step.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, I look forward to having you back on in the future to hear about, the kind of the evolution of these things. I know that there's no doubt that you all are doing some good stuff in the film space and the music space, but my heart is in the film space, so that's especially anything local. I get really excited to see a lot of people kind of navigating the film space, which I know very intimately, and finding successes and kind of finding ground to gain. It's a beautiful thing for me to watch, because it's so close to my heart.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I mean, there are many like you, but you are also one of a kind, right? You're extremely talented, brother. I've always enjoyed seeing your work, and I think that we need to do better in terms of providing you, Kevin Brooks, Conrad, Paris,
Curtin Samuel,
Siobhan,
Metaver.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many out there. Richard Ragubar saying, we could go on and on, right?
We could literally
Michael
spend the next
Cherry,
hour calling names.
of
Yes,
course, yeah,
absolutely.
Right? If only we could start working together and figuring out the ways that we can make shorts, make indie features, make things, just product.
I really think at some point, I don't mean to cut you, but at some point it's a volume thing as well. We need to put out the numbers.
Yeah.
If we were putting out 30 shorts, even if forget features for a second, if we're putting 30 shorts a year, every 2 years, let's just say.
Yeah.
I mean, that at some point somebody's gonna hit somebody, because the numbers at that point, it's a volume thing.
Yeah.
And 30 shorts going out of varying genres, going out to hundreds of film festivals, if not thousands, globally. I mean,
Yeah,
that could be.
You're gonna have a breakthrough somewhere.
I think so.
You know, it's a lot harder when you're trying to chip away at this iceberg with like, you know, a pencil or something. Like it's very, very difficult.
And even with like with your short,
Yeah.
The Tall Boy, it's making massive chips and in those ice blocks, and it's kind of making its way around and going to an Oscar qualifying film festival. I think it's still hard for one single vehicle to kind of push the Trinidad or the Trinidad and Tobago or the Caribbean forward. It's hard for one vehicle to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had, you know, more of a numbers game, Tall Boy would still kind of stand out as above the rest, but then you would still have all these others that are Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Barbados,
Yeah.
Antigua,
Yeah.
Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. And I think that just constant going over people's heads, going through people's heads, you know, around the world, whether it's film festivals or whatever the case is, then Trinidad and the rest of the Caribbean might be, you know, it's like, well, it's even more of a location to come and film because look how much is coming out of that region and the stories that are coming out of that region. So, but yeah, we could talk about this for a long time, but I appreciate you coming on, man.
No, this is great. I really appreciate the time you took giving me this as a platform, of course, to,
Absolutely.
to you know, do this. And I'm very excited about our future. Like I feel as if we are doing the things that are necessary to, you know, get over that sort of Sisyphean task that we've given each other, right? That we're going to get over that hill and be able to clear it. So, yeah, man, I'm here for it.
I appreciate it. Let's make some movies.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cheers, man. Thank you very much again.
All right, brother. Take care.